To order the Thursday, February 15th, 2018 meeting of the Royal Oak Zoning Board of Appeals. The board does not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. The use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table or adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, and it looks like we are down one member this evening, please inform the chairperson immediately following the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes, and each participant in the public hearing shall do their best to limit their comments to 3 minutes. That being said, our first order of business is approval of the minutes for the February 15th, 2018 meeting.
Motion approved.
Moved.
Before we make a second, I'll note on page 2, on page 1, I found an error. It references February 8th, so I'll make that change if you want to add that to your motion. We'll just throw it in there. So we'll correct that date.
Is that good with Mr. Kroll?
Yes, absolutely.
And
Perfect.
did I hear support yet?
Support.
Any other additions, corrections, deletions? Not seeing any, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. We don't have any old business, I believe.
Nope, not today.
So that moves us along to our first item of new business, item number D1, case number 180306, public hearing on the appeal, and I haven't signed that yet. Of Krieger Klatt Architects Inc, petitioner, and T&J Investments LLC owner for the following variances. Waive 23 feet of the maximum allowable driveway width of 25 feet at the property line. And B, to waive the minimum required 10-foot corner vision clearance setbacks along Delaware Avenue to permit a 40-foot wide driveway along Delaware Avenue to access the off-street parking area at 303 East Kenilworth. Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Chair, I need to recuse myself from this one.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
We're going to have to stop paying him full pay.
Noting that. Back in September of last year, the board saw, and I'll bring it up on the screen in front of you, saw the petitioner was in front of you seeking some waivers, and they had presented a plan that illustrated the creation of an off-street parking area to the rear of the building. And it's noted on the drawings here in the darker gray, and it was a parking area of 3 parking spaces that are accessed from a curb cut along Delaware Avenue, and those parking spaces would be parked along the north side of the property. The petitioner is looking to modify the drawing to create an area for a refuse enclosure for garbage, as well as create 4 off-street parking area spaces that are accessed at a right angle to Delaware Avenue. And in doing so, the driveway, the curb cut at the property line extends all the way from the north property line, that edge of that northernmost parking space, all the way to the edge of the drive that extends to the refuse enclosure. So that distance is a little under 48 feet, or if you want to call it 48 feet. Again, the ordinance allows a maximum driveway width at the property line, so not out in the street, but at the property line, so about a foot in from the sidewalk, of no more than 25 feet wide. So the petitioner is seeking a variance in order to create access to 4 parking spaces, and in doing and the dumpster area. So they need a waiver from the maximum driveway width. Additionally, those parking spaces, especially the one to the north, is located within what we refer to as our 10-foot visibility triangle, meaning if someone's parked in this parking space, the northern parking space, and they're backing out, they're unable to see someone coming down the sidewalk due to the fact that there is a 6-foot-high masonry wall on the property line, and the photograph in front of you will illustrate it. So the drive would essentially come out to Delaware, which the engineering division has indicated that they're proceeding forward with pavement paving, hard surfacing it this coming summer. And again, the drive would lead to a parking space which would be shadowed by this parking, by the screening wall. So if someone were backing out of that parking space, they wouldn't have the visibility of seeing someone coming down the sidewalk and would create a pedestrian vehicle conflict. So they're seeking a waiver from the standard for that as well.
Joe, what was approved already, parking lot?
Sure, let's take a look at it one more time. So this illustrates in the darker shaded area a defined curb cut that leads to parking spaces that are along the north side of the property.
So we've
if
got
someone
how
would
many
back
there
out-
now?
1, 2, 3. And they're looking to create 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then access, hard surface access to the dumpster enclosure that they want to create.
Where was the dumpster before?
They did not have one before. They feel.
So the change is because of the dumpster, basically.
In part, it would still be we'll say too wide if it were just the 4 parking spaces. But it's hard surfaced all the way from the end of basically the end of the building, the edge of the building, all the way to the north property line. And let me zoom into the next picture. That kind of shows it better as a little more detail. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then access to the dumpster enclosure.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy at this point? Not seeing any? Let Mr. Krieger hand these out. And the
Just
floor is
existing
yours.
Conditions of what's there. That answers where the trash is currently on site.
Do you want the floor, or the floor is yours?
I'm Ryan Kowalski with Krieger Klatt Architects. I'm here to represent Tom Violente, who wanted to be here but is out of town today. We are seeking a variance to allow for that wider driveway to access the 4 off-street parking spaces in the dumpster enclosure. Our ultimate goal is to maximize the off-street parking, provide dedicated parking for the tenants of the building, and to try to limit as much street parking as possible. We also want to access that dumpster enclosure, as Jason just passed out. Right now, all the trash is set to the curb in plastic trash bins. What we want to do is provide that in a more enclosed dumpster enclosure, and in order to access that, we will need that wider driveway. We did see the staff comment about that vision triangle along the south side. We feel that dumpster set back enough where one backing out would be able to see around it. On the north side, there's an existing CMU partition wall, which I don't believe is on our property. We are not taking away any green space that was already approved at last year's ZBA. And really the reason why we're asking for this is not only to enclose that trash, improve the land, but also to get as much parking as possible, as that was a sticking point and a conversation point from all the neighbors. So I'm here if anybody has any questions. I'm here to answer them.
We'll start at the very end. Mr. Opak.
Ladies first.
That's fine. Well, obviously, this isn't your first rodeo when it comes to design. So my question is, it seems that these would have been factors that you would have stumbled upon much sooner than this, whether it be the extra parking or the dumpster area. And I'm wondering why it is that you didn't include that in our first look at this project, then waiting till now and saying, oh, wait, it's not working.
We're kind of developing that design and looking at that a few times in a few different ways. It wasn't until after really we started getting into the demolition and really starting to take another look at the property and hearing all the comments from the neighbors where off-street parking wasn't concerned, but we took another look and said, how can we really appease as many people as possible and get as much parking on our site and limit that off-street parking?
I just wanted to just add, because I was more involved in the beginning portions of this, that
Hey,
this.
Jason, if you would introduce yourself just for the record, please.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Jason Krieger with Krieger Klatt Architects, 1412 East 11 Mile.
Thank you.
So this did come up a little bit later on. Mostly once, in the beginning, we were trying to minimize some of the work on site, and that was really just what we were trying to do, so that's why that wasn't there. And, frankly, Tom looked at it and said, it started with him saying, well, I really want to do a trash enclosure, because we don't have that, I don't think that was the first plan. And then it trickled into, well, if we did this, then it would turn into more parking. It went down the road. And then we mentioned to Tom, well, if we do this, now we're going to have to go back to the zoning board of appeals because we're adding more, another spot on site, and we're increasing the driveway width. And, honestly, he thought that it was the right thing to do. So that's what brought us back here. So it wasn't that we avoided it. It really just didn't come up in the very beginning design.
Question I have is, because I have a concern about that safety triangle, especially since this is a very heavily populated area, especially with the market right there. Does it, I don't know if we're able to, but put the stipulation on it that switching the dumpster to the far
I had the same.
north side, this way, because when a trash truck comes by, they're backing up, so therefore theoretically, they're already gonna be sticking partially out, probably onto the sidewalk, and be less likely for someone to get hit when someone's backing up.
Well, plus it's only used, once a week.
Right.
That's the first thing that jumped out at me as well.
Yeah.
So would you be amenable to that if we put that stipulation down if,
Yeah, I
Okay.
would think that makes sense.
okay.
The garbage a little further from the building,
Yeah,
but,
yeah. No, that's a good point.
I think people are used to walking somewhat to a dumpster.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am?
Have you discussed with whoever does own that masonry wall, if you could take part of it down so the 10-foot triangle would be available to you?
Yeah, no, we have not at this point.
I really think if you switch it, it would be an advantage to have the wall.
Yeah, further screen it.
Yeah, on the other side of the dumpster.
All right, any other questions for the petitioner? And as you can see, we are down 2 members this evening, so he would need to get 5 out of 7 votes, is that correct? So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the public hearing and see if anybody in the audience wants to speak. You guys decide if you want us to move forward or possibly table this till next month or what have you. With that being said, is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address the ZBA on this issue? All right, not seeing anybody, I will go ahead and close the public hearing, and the choice is yours, gentlemen.
Yeah, we'd like to call a vote.
All right, absolutely. All right, we'll bring it back to this side of the table for additional discussion. Yes, sir?
First of all, there isn't a problem with the 10-foot against the building? It's only against the concrete wall? It's only on the one side? I'm looking at it like you'd be looking over that little patio or stairway or whatever it is, but I just because we're discussing that kind of thing of moving it would maybe solve the problem, but.
We can look on the screen in front of you. It shows a 8-foot distance to a certain point, and I'm assuming, presumption that's another 2 feet. So to that point right there, it's probably 10 feet or pretty doggone close.
Okay. Plus, it looks like, sitting in a vehicle, you might be able to look straight over the top of that porch anyways. It wouldn't be blocking your view.
There's a walkway coming out that's not elevated, I don't think. Yeah, that 5-foot sidewalk.
Okay.
And gentlemen, can you come back up to the microphone in case we have more questions, which actually I do have one. You're proposing changing the direction of the headlights so that they shine into the neighbor's backyard now as opposed to the auto parts place immediately to the left of it. Is there any talk about reinforcing that wall in some way so there's not any bleeding of those headlights?
Well, it does look like a solid fence. The slats are tight together. We discussed before the meeting, if that did come up, that we could provide additional arborvitae or something like that along there to beautify it and then also further screen that. I don't think Tom would be opposed to that. I mean, that would actually improve his property, frankly, but.
The wood slats do appear to be pretty tight together, but it also does appear to be an older fence, and I can see down the road where issues could arise. So, I mean, a row of arborvitae or something I think would be, and plus it'd look nice anyways.
There are a number of trees there, so we'd have to work around some of those things that are already there, but I'm sure that Tom would be amenable to that.
All right. Yes, sir?
I would like to make a motion.
Yes, sir?
Are you in agreement to change the position of the dumpster?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I would like to make that as a stipulation in the
Could I add something before you do?
Please.
If we have a 25-foot driveway, or no, 40-some-odd foot, whatever it is, very wide driveway, there's always a possibility somebody comes along and parks their car blocking it, because you're not going to presume there's this huge curb cut. Possibly, there should be a sign put on either side saying no parking between these signs.
Can you stripe the apron maybe? I mean, I don't know what, you don't want it to look terrible, but I think Bob raises a good point.
Yeah, I mean, you could have all your people blocked in your parking lot because people park there, and if there isn't a sign, in fact, I'm not sure, you've given a variance for an extra wide driveway, and that isn't what a driver that's parking a car by a street presumes is there. You presume a certain width. So I could see somebody all of a sudden coming out to leave, somebody parked their car and walked into the business next door.
That, but I do know that that street will be improved. And at that point,
It'll be more clearly defined,
there'll be curbs in a drive.
and there'll be grass area between the sidewalk and the back
point.
and curb.
I think that it would
It's a
just
thought.
passively, be a driveway, and I think that people would know not to park in front of the drive. There are wider drives that go into Holiday Market around there, or other commercial areas, you don't park there, so. What I would hope to be able to do is let Tom handle that if it becomes an issue, and then he could stripe it, or he
Okay.
could put signage, but I'd rather not add these things now, we don't need to congest things.
A thought.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Okay, back to you, sir.
Yes, so I would make a motion to approve with the stipulation that the dumpster becomes the, changes place with the, against
North
the
property line.
masonry wall, yes.
Motion by Mr. Kroll,
I'll support.
seconded by Mr. Muller. Do you want a stipulation added for the additional screening, Mr. Murphy?
Only if you see fit.
Mr. Kroll?
I don't see that, no.
All right. Any discussion?
To me, this is somewhat of a detail. We've seen this property in front of us a couple different times. And kind of in the approval process, which I voted for, I imagine most of us did because it passed, this almost becomes a detail. I think we pick up one additional parking space that's not going to be on the street, so that should make somebody happy. I think moving the dumpster across makes great sense. It's against the masonry wall. And, I drove by the property again, and I haven't seen it in a while, and it certainly looks a lot nicer, even in its production state, than it did before. So I'm in favor of making things look good. I think it makes sense.
Follow-up thoughts? Yes, sir.
I actually feel that, it's adding only one parking space, yet that was one of the biggest concerns of the neighbors. So there's one more less possibility of somebody parks in front of your house that lives there. So I think the neighbors, even though no one is here, they didn't come when they were probably notified, right? With the, Yep, so I don't imagine this is something that's shaking them up a lot. That's a plus.
Absolutely.
They're not shy in that neighborhood at all.
No, they're not.
Yes, ma'am.
So on that regard, it will lead to substantial justice for the neighboring people too. And I think that it's an excellent compromise, so.
Not seeing other hands, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. All set, gentlemen. Thank you. All right, and that moves us down to our second item of new business, 32, case number 180307, public hearing on the appeal of DS Building Company LLC, petitioner and owner for the following variance: waive 20.42 feet of the minimum required 30.75 setback along Tonawanda to permit construction of a two-story single-family dwelling and an attached accessory structure, garage located at 3524 Normandy. Mr. Murphy.
This property is located at the corner of Normandy and Tonawanda. It currently has an existing home with a detached garage that the petitioner is proposing to demolish. And they're going to construct a two-story single-family dwelling with an attached garage that's accessed via the side street or Tonawanda. This property, again, is a corner lot, and as you can see from the aerial photographs on the screen in front of you, as well as the survey, the adjacent property to the north on Tonawanda has a front yard setback. So this particular property, which has a frontage along both Tonawanda and Normandy, requires a front yard setback equal to the distance, the setback along Tonawanda needs to be equal to the distance of the house to the north at 4216 Tonawanda, which is 30.75 feet. And the petitioner is proposing to maintain a 10.3-foot setback along that side for the single-family dwelling. And I'll highlight that on the survey that they provided. And the survey they provided also illustrates the house that is currently there and its setback, as well as the setback for the existing detached garage, to give you a point of reference. So you'll see the house to the north of Tonawanda and maintaining that front yard setback. This is the existing garage, which is located within that front yard setback currently. And the house, which is shown in the hatched outline, the house that's currently there is also within that front yard setback. This thicker line illustrates the outline of the proposed two-story single-family home and detached garage, and as you can see, it's essentially in line with the existing garage, which unfortunately is within the front yard setback of the house on Tonawanda. So they're seeking a waiver from that provision in order to place the house where they've illustrated it on the drawing.
So, obviously, all this is built so it's legal at some point, right? I mean, the garage is kind of in the same position that the house will be now, and that house is in the same position.
I'd have to look at a plat map to see how all the lots were laid out. It appears as though the lot to the north was, the orientation of it was designed, as you were saying.
Yeah.
It could have been carved up from the backside of other properties to make, we see that oftentimes. So I don't know that for absolute fact without looking into it a little deeper, but it appears as though that may very well have been the case, yes. Or different standard way back in time. That house appears to be from maybe the 1940s.
Yeah.
And certainly the house on Tonawanda is very recent.
Any other questions?
I'd say by the time you apply all these setback regulations, looks like the building envelope may be about 20 feet wide.
Mm-hmm. It's very
It's
challenging.
pretty minimal. You can't really build much in 20 feet.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy at this point? Is the petitioner present? Yes, sir.
Hi. Paul Cameron, DS Building
Bless you.
920 East Long Lake, Troy, Michigan. Yeah, so obviously what you heard is what we're seeking. Basically, the existing property warrants a 20-foot 3-wide envelope that would Normandy, which, as you know, is pretty challenging for any type of home. And then the lot that's to the west across Tonawanda, that's a corner lot, but that's wider, which they took into account the 2 front yard setbacks to actually create a more usable building envelope when they actually developed that side. We are basically the same width as the property to the east. And those are 5-foot setbacks, which would give them a much wider envelope to build their home on. I could put this house that we're proposing on that lot, no issues. So that's kind of, we're just looking to build a nice 2,400 square foot colonial home, nothing crazy.
So your footprint's roughly 1,200 square feet?
Yeah, I'd have to, it's 1,200 plus the garage.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
Any questions for the petitioner?
Have you ever considered utilizing that garage floor space as living space and then maybe stepping a garage back off to the back? So that it wouldn't fit in completely in alignment, but it might be stepped back a little bit, attaching another segment.
Yeah, I mean, the structures that are there are dilapidated to the point where we're taking them down. I mean, there's nothing much to save.
No, that's not what I meant. I just
Okay.
meant that currently your design has it so that the garage is part of the house.
Correct.
And have you ever considered, I can see someone coming to us in the future, basically, and saying, hey, you know what? We don't want the garage anymore. We want to turn it into a house, living space, and we want to put our garage a little bit towards the east property line along with the house and have our driveway like that.
So you'd be entering the house off of Normandy in your mind?
No, it would still be off of Tonawanda. So if you put the old garage, like slid it over, that's all I'm thinking, and slid it over to the back.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at trying to build the most sensible form of construction, which is to incorporate that garage into the construction of the home. you know, just from a common sense, construction-wise, it makes sense to keep it within the building envelope of the house.
It was just a suggestion.
No, I understand, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? And again, as you see, we are down one board member, so you would need to get 5 out of 8
Understood.
if you want us to move forward.
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Well, I did have a question.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Why did you make it more square than rectangular and have to come for more variance on Tonawanda's side instead of creeping more into the backyard?
You know, it's nice to have, we have a garage, it's 20 feet, and we would like to get a foyer in a room to front Normandy. That's kind of just nice architecture. You walk in, you have a room. I guess to go, maybe what you're saying would require,
You could have still done that if the dining room was rotated 90 degrees. That could have been off there. You still would have had the foyer. The study gets reversed the other side, and you could put the car garage in the back. I'm just asking.
yeah, just people want backyards. We're trying to keep an efficient footprint, you know, maximize the backyard connection.
Because I'm having a real hard time giving you only 10 feet off the sidewalk there, especially since before it was a lot more, and I would have been more open to keeping that same lot line or the same outline of the house before and then going farther back into the yard. The garage, at least the current garage is set back that it's not impeding upon that intersection. You're starting to really creep into that intersection.
Yeah, I mean, again, my concern is when people want to move into these new homes, that garage in the back kills the connection to the backyard, people with kids, and, you know, so it really becomes more on our end, more of a function of usability to the yard.
I understand that, but there's a lot of nice corner lots that are even thinner than this, that have been more rectilinear. Yes, do they lose the backyard? That's part of having that corner lot and having that garage that is, but they're fine with it. So I understand what you're going. I'm just saying I'm having a hard time knowing all the other houses that are out there that are more rectilinear than square on it and don't take up as much of a variance request as this.
Mr. Ofacker, you set?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Klatt.
Anthony, I see your point too, and believe me, I did the same thing. Like, could you simply take the study and place that in front of the garage and attempt to try to skinny the home up? But then it leads to some awkward spaces and a real long linear corridor leading into the home too. So I think there is some practical difficulty here with these setbacks that does limit some of the design. So,
Yeah.
for that, I'll make a motion.
Well, we haven't even got to the public hearing yet. Hang on.
Sorry about that. Gee, I'm already jumping ahead of things.
It's gotta be somewhere.
Yeah,
Double
sorry about
parts.
that. Getting ahead of things.
No problem. Any other questions for the petitioner at this point? Then I'll ask you to take a seat real quickly, sir, and open up the public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address us on this matter? Please, sir.
I just have a quick question. I live over on.
Come to the microphone and introduce yourself, please.
My name's Dan Dewhurst. I live on Hampton, just the other side of the block.
Yes, sir.
I didn't quite understand where the garage is gonna be right now in the new home. Is it gonna be similar location, or is it gonna be, the access to the garage gonna be off of?
There's a slide that shows like the 4 elevations and then if
It's
Mr.
accessed
Murphy
off
finds
of
it.
Tonawanda, and it's attached garage.
Well, do you have this page here, Mr. Murphy?
The front of the
Floor
house.
plan.
I can show you right now.
The front of the house that's there, it's actually right there, just extended about another
Oh, there
10
you
feet
go.
closer.
Face Normandy, this would face Normandy.
So my heartburn would be cars parking in front of the garage across the sidewalk.
Okay.
I'm just, I have kids.
Yeah.
They ride the bikes around the block.
Legally,
They
they
go-
can't park
Legally,
over
they
it.
can't do that anyway, so.
Okay, all right, that's my only concern.
All right.
And then sight lines like this gentleman said as well. Because down on our corner at Hampton and Normandy, there's a 4-way stop that the police hang out on a regular basis because people roll it, drive through it, miss it. So at Normandy gets to be a pretty fast corridor through there. So any sight lines at any intersections, I think are pretty important.
I'm just across Woodward from you, and I learned a long time ago, you stop at that stop sign.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to this side of the table.
I'll make a clarification to Alan's point. I want to zoom back in on the
Yes,
map
sir.
on the first page of the report. And you asked about how those lots were platted, and yes, indeed, they were platted exactly like you were thinking. So you can see from the aerial photograph, the original platted lot lines, and you were correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Doug, there's actually 2 curb cuts there at that house?
Yes, the petitioner has indicated that they're going to remove the curb cut on Normandy and the existing one on Tonawanda and establish a new one that leads to the new detached garage.
Is anybody prepared to take action?
Well, I want to say a few things. I was
Sir.
very concerned with when you make something either non-conforming or more non-conforming, which this would, and had thought originally about, hey, if they didn't have an attached garage, you could put a garage at the back of the lot and get away with it. At the same time, I hadn't been paying attention to that sight line from the house behind it. And if you did that, the garage would probably be way in the back of the lot and would actually stick out probably a little further and be far more of a sightline issue than this house. Even though it comes out further, it's a long way away from that other house. It isn't like, you know, you look out your window and 15 feet away, this house sticks out 3, 4, 5 feet further. Right now, it'll be a better sight line than the existing garage because it's gone. So although, like I said, I started before I came to the meeting because I hadn't thought of that, really going, no, I don't like this. At this point, I'm beginning to think this might be one of the better designs for that sight line from the neighbor. Just a thought.
Mr. Klatt?
Like I said, for the reasons I mentioned before, and I was about to make a motion to approve it, so I will make that motion.
Motion's made,
I'll second that.
and we have support from Mr. Kroll. Any-
Second, you have second.
Second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yes, sir.
No.
I'm still having a problem seeing the hardship here. I don't see why it can't be a little more rectangular so that it doesn't have to be so close to the sidewalk, be so close to the street. And I am concerned with the sight line. Bob's point is very good. The fact that the garage is going to be further away from the house to the north, is it? But I still don't think it has to extend so far into the setback.
Yeah, go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
The reason I asked the question earlier is because I find this lot, I mean, I think the property is a hardship. Could you move it a little bit? Would you substantially help the neighborhood by shrinking or by rearranging the house? And I'm comfortable, I guess this gentleman knows his business and and knows what the market's looking for, and you might as well build to the market. So at that point, you have a 20-foot wide area, and I think that's why Mr. Klatt made the motion. And at some point, somebody decided that everybody could do it this way. Trying to pick apart some of it sometimes is very difficult because what goes in its place. And that's why I'll be supporting the motion. No, I'm supporting it.
I'll be supporting the motion as well. There's a couple things that stuck in my mind, and Mr. Kroll hit one. We always run into building envelope challenges when we're talking about corner lots. When we talked about the previous property, last year or whenever it was, based on how wide it was, literally, we joked about it, but we could have fit maybe a balance beam in there to meet the side yard requirements. I think that they're building it's a good looking home, but I think it's a very respectful home in terms of not trying to put too much home onto this property and then sort of overcoming the homes around it. And then frankly, as Mr. Muller mentioned, designing it with the garage attached to the way that it is, it opened up the backyard. I think it does substantial justice to the neighbor there, and I think it's a very nice design, and I think it'll look great, and that neighborhood's really booming. There's a lot of nice houses being built over there. Any other discussion?
I guess I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Muller on the fact that it leaves more green space in the backyard, because I'm really not keen on, when somebody takes down a property, I like to see them stay within the guidelines, because that's the whole point of raising a building, and you've got a blank slate. I would probably like to see something a little more elongated, but in this case, it might actually fit in with the bungalows next door, with the squareness of it, so that's my thoughts.
All right, not seeing any other hands, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
No.
Who are the two nays, I'm sorry? Got it. So that motion does pass.
Thank you.
You're all set. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that brings us down to other business. Do we have any other business?
Well, then you have new parking. You have new parking passes.
Good.
Read the note carefully.
Are we still able to park where we've always parked?
Don't ask.
Out here.
Doesn't matter.
Out here? No, because there will be other items there that will prevent anyone from parking there. Physically, you won't be able to park there.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
In this lot?
No, out back.
My personal parking space.
It's about time somebody took it away.
Because they're gonna do something?
I don't have to bring this car around, what can I tell you? It's already
Can we get
there.
valet?
All right, I'm going to call for the mystery motion. Who wants to make it?
I'll move to adjourn.
Moved.
I'm not seeing anything else tonight. I
Was there
already
any
screwed that
public
one.
comment?
Did I hear you say?
That's,
Oh, Alan did.
Oh, sure. I thought you were all set. I apologize, sir.
No, I'm good with that, but since I'm here, I have a question. So I'm on Hampton Boulevard, just kind of Kitty Corner and a couple lots down. The 2001, I took my 700 square foot house, put a 1,400 square foot addition on it, and maxed out my 30% coverage of my lot. And now I'd like to try and make my detached garage a little bit bigger. Is that something that's possible, or is that something that I'm really? Right now it's a 2-car, it's 20 by 20, and I just I think add 100 square feet or something like that to make it like a 2.5, and it's in the backyard. I'm not asking for approval, I'm just asking if this is something that's possible, or?
Yep, and you would contact myself and I can help you with an application process to
Okay.
come
Okay.
before the board. Absolutely.
Great, thanks.
I need to, actually. Might be legal now.
Well, it's like 29.85% of the lot is covered by house and
It
garage.
wouldn't be legal now. huh?
Yep.
That's all I got, thanks. And they're doing a great job in the neighborhood, trust me.
It's such a difference over there.
From 14 to Normandy, Coolidge to Woodward, since we started, not that I started, but since we started ours, there's 35 new homes back there now.
Great.
You can really, when you drive down, cut through
Crazy.
those side streets, it looks so nice.
Yeah, it's crazy, it's great, so, thanks, guys.
Hey, have a great night, sir.
So I would contact you, Mr. Murphy, for. Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Absolutely.
So we had a motion to adjourn. I didn't know if I heard a second or not.
Yes.
All right, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.